50 tons of steel burned beneath a 19-year-old boy. January 26, 1945, Holtzwihr, France. Snow 3 feet deep. 250 elite infantry. 40 exhausted Americans. 1 burning M-tank destroyer. 110 pounds of Texan bone, and will stand alone. German tactics promise victory through numbers, armor, doctrine. They never imagined this. If everything German training guarantees suddenly fails, what terrifying truth remains? On this field, every rule they trust is about to fail. January 26, 1945, 14:20 hours. The frozen fields outside Holtzwihr, France, roar with artillery and the dull thunder of advancing tanks. Smoke drifts low over the snow, smeared by wind that cuts through wool and steel alike. In that gray haze, something unfolds that German doctrine insists cannot happen. One exhausted American officer stands between 250 elite infantry, 6 armored vehicles, and the destruction of his shattered company. The numbers are brutal. 40 worn-down Americans, 250 German soldiers, 6 tanks and assault guns that have crushed resistance across Europe. The German attack rolls forward with the confidence of experience and overwhelming strength. The man at the center of this impossible equation is Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy. He weighs barely 110 pounds. He stands 5 feet 5 inches. To the German mountain troops, he appears almost like a boy. To the men of Company B, he already carries the weight of a veteran far older than his 19 years. The road to this frozen field begins far from France, in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. June 20th, 1925. A sharecropper's shack stands under a hard southern sun. Inside, the 6th of 12 children grows up in a world defined by scarcity. The walls show wear. The floorboards creak. Hunger visits often. By age 12, Audie's father walks away, leaving the family to fend for itself. Responsibility settles on the thin shoulders of a boy who should still be in school. His mother fights illness and poverty until 1941, when endocarditis and pneumonia finally claim her. At 16, Audie becomes the primary provider for his younger siblings. Survival turns into a daily calculation. Ammunition costs money the family does not have. Meat means the difference between food and another night of empty plates. Out in the fields and woods, a .22 rifle rests in his hands like an extension of his own body. If I do not hit what I shoot at, my family does not eat tonight. Neighbors watch the boy track rabbits across rough ground. Monroe Hackney sees him drop running targets at 50 yards with a worn rifle that others can barely keep on target. Each shot carries consequence. Each miss carries shame and hunger. Under that pressure, a hunter's calm precision forms behind pale blue eyes. December 1941, news of Pearl Harbor reaches Texas. For Audie, the war offers something the fields never could: steady pay, 3 meals a day, a chance to send money home. He moves toward the recruiting offices with quiet determination. The military, at first, moves him back. The Marines reject him. Too small. The Navy turns him away. The paratroopers refuse him. At 5 feet 5 inches and 110 pounds, he does not fit their image of a warrior. Only the regular army finally opens its doors. And even then, only after his sister falsifies his age, so he appears 18. June 30th, 1942. The Army accepts Private Audie Murphy. At Camp Wolders, Texas, other recruits study him with disbelief. Private First Class David Mouse McClure later remembers the first impression. A kid who looks 14, a frame that seems too slight for a rifle, much less war. Drill sergeants ride him hard, calling him baby, pushing him to collapse. Something changes when he steps onto the rifle range. Those same baby blue eyes turn flat and cold. The rifle settles into his shoulder. Targets fall, one after another, with mechanical regularity. McClure later recalls that he never sees Murphy miss. The Army ships him to war in 1943. Sicily rises from the Mediterranean under the guns of the Allied invasion. Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, lands near Licata as part of Patton's 7th Army. The hills and ravines of Sicily feel strangely familiar to a boy raised in rough country. In those mountains, Murphy discovers a terrible truth. He is exceptionally good at killing, His rural upbringing has already taught him to move quietly, to read ground, to use every fold of terrain. Now, he applies those skills against human targets. Near Palermo, when his unit stalls under machine gun fire, he slips through cover, closes on the enemy position, and eliminates the crew with grenades. Then, he turns their own weapon on retreating German soldiers. Captain Paul Harris notes the result in official language that barely contains its meaning. This soldier displays a natural aptitude for combat that is extraordinary in one so young and inexperienced. Italy turns that aptitude into legend. October 1940 thread, at the Volturno River, Murphy's squad takes heavy losses. Alone, with a borrowed sniper rifle, he holds a position against a German counterattack. 5 enemy soldiers fall at ranges beyond 300 yards. The Distinguished Service Cross follows, recognizing a level of individual combat performance that already stands out in a brutal campaign. Comrades watch his method and struggle to describe it. Staff Sergeant William Paulson later explains that Murphy does not fight angry. He fights cold, calculated. Each movement looks like arithmetic. See a German, eliminate the German, move to the next. No visible emotion, no hesitation. At Anzio, on the beachhead Churchill calls a wildcat, Murphy earns his first Silver Star. He destroys a German tank with a bazooka at point-blank range, closing to a distance where a single mistake means instant death. By the time Allied forces land in southern France in August 1944, he has already survived Sicily, Salerno. He carries 2 wounds, multiple decorations, and a reputation that spreads through both Allied and German ranks. During the drive through southern France near Montélimar, his lieutenant dies in an ambush. With 18 men, he organizes a defense against a German company of more than 100. For 2 hours, they hold a critical crossroads. Murphy personally accounts for 15 enemy dead. His leadership under fire earns him a battlefield commission to second lieutenant on October 14, 1944. By January 1945, the war has carved deep lines into his young face. Most of the men who landed with him are dead or wounded. He has personally killed more than 100 enemy soldiers. Now his path leads into the Colmar Pocket, an 850-square-mile German bridgehead west of the Rhine, the last German-held soil in France. Hitler orders it held at all costs. The Wehrmacht reinforces the pocket with some of its best remaining units. Among them the 2nd Mountain Division, hardened in Norway and the Eastern Front, trained for winter warfare. Against them stands the 3rd Infantry Division, including the battered remnants of Company B. The days before January 26th grind the company down. In 5 days of fighting, they lose 102 men wounded, and all officers except Murphy. From 187 men, only 40 remain effective. Frostbite gnaws at feet and fingers. Sleep becomes a memory. Rations freeze in their tins. Private Anthony Abramsky later describes their state. No sleep for 3 days, cold K rations when they can eat at all, machine guns freezing. Attempts to dig foxholes fail as shovels bounce off iron-hard ground. At dawn, they see their positions strung along the edge of the woods, open fields stretching out toward the German-held village of Holtzwihr. The men understand what that means. They sit exposed. January 26, 1945, dawns gray and bitter. The temperature hovers around freezing. Snow lies 3 feet deep in places, churned into frozen mud by constant shelling. Company B holds the edge of the Bois de Redouar, facing nearly a mile of open ground. Murphy positions his depleted company as best he can. 2 M10 tank destroyers represent his only real answer to German armor. His infantry stretches thin along the tree line. He establishes his command post in a drainage ditch that offers minimal shelter and a clear view of the killing ground. Field telephone lines link him to supporting artillery batteries. Those guns, miles away, form his last real reserve. At 1300 hours, German artillery begins to fall. Tree bursts detonate above the American positions, showering them with splinters of steel and wood. For 30 minutes, the barrage rakes the forest edge. Men press into shallow depressions, hands over helmets, teeth clenched against the concussions. At 1400 hours, the German attack appears. Private First Class Donald Ekman spots them first. 6 armored vehicles, Panzer IVs and assault guns, spread across the field. Behind them, a white tide of infantry advances. Approximately 250 men in snow camouflage move forward in disciplined lines, their shapes ghost-like against the churned snow. Murphy calls for artillery. Shells begin to fall among the advancing Germans, but the attackers are too many and too spread out. They keep coming. At 600 yards, the M10s open fire. Their first rounds miss. The crews are exhausted, fingers numb, eyes burning from cold and smoke. German 88mm guns answer with brutal precision. One shell slams into the rear M10's turret. Flames erupt instantly, licking along the hull. The crew scrambles out, some on fire, and runs for the woods. The forward M10 tries to reposition. Its tracks lose grip on the frozen ground. The vehicle slides sideways into a drainage ditch and bogs down. Its crew abandons it under fire and sprints for cover. In minutes, Company B loses its armored support. At approximately 14:20 hours, German infantry closes to within 200 yards. The attack gathers momentum. The American line, already thin, faces collapse. At that moment, Murphy makes a decision that defies every principle of self-preservation. He orders his remaining men to fall back into the woods to secondary positions. Then he moves in the opposite direction. He runs toward the burning rear M10 shells still fall. Machine gun rounds snap through the air. The tank destroyer burns fiercely, black smoke pouring from the hull. Heat radiates outward, intense even at 30 feet. Inside, fuel and ammunition cook toward catastrophe. Murphy climbs onto the vehicle. He swings the .50 caliber M2 Browning into position. From this elevated perch, he commands a clear field of fire across the German advance. He also stands completely exposed, a single figure outlined against smoke and winter sky. Private Abramsky watches from the tree line. He later recalls seeing Murphy on top of the burning tank destroyer, while machine gun bursts and pistol fire hammer the hull and treads. To Abramsky, it becomes the greatest display of courage he ever witnesses. The M2 Browning roars to life. At 550 rounds per minute, the heavy machine gun spits streams of .50 caliber bullets across the field. Each round carries enough energy to punch through light armor and tear human bodies apart. In Murphy's hands, the weapon does not spray wildly. For the next hour, he works the gun with relentless precision. He maintains telephone contact with artillery, the handset cradled as he shouts coordinates over the thunder of his own weapon. Fire missions land dangerously close, shells exploding within tens of yards of his position. The combination of his direct fire and the artillery he directs creates a lethal barrier. Sergeant Elmer Brawley observes from the woods. He later describes German infantrymen reaching within 10 yards of Murphy, only to fall in ditches, meadows, and tree lines wherever he spots them. The environment fights everyone. The frozen ground denies cover. The cold stiffens fingers and jams weapons. Visibility shifts as overcast skies thin and thicken. Yet from his precarious platform, Murphy turns those conditions to his advantage. The .50 caliber's 2,000-meter effective range allows him to engage targets at extreme distance. The thick smoke from the burning vehicle obscures him from many German gunners, while still allowing him glimpses of movement through gaps and eddies. The German attack begins to unravel. Their tanks, trained to advance with infantry screens, find themselves exposed. Without foot soldiers to protect them from close assault, they cannot push forward into the American positions. Yet the infantry that should shield them is being cut down in swaths. Wehrmacht doctrine demands combined arms coordination. On this field, that coordination collapses under the weight of one man's fire. Technical Sergeant Morris Wold, watching through binoculars from the battalion command post, later testifies that Murphy's bursts are always aimed. He sees Murphy cut down an entire squad attempting to flank the American line. Minutes stretch into an eternity of recoil, smoke, and impact. Around 1500 hours, after roughly 40 minutes of continuous firing, the .50's ammunition begins to run low. The barrel glows red. The burning M10 sags as its metal components soften and collapse. German infantry edges closer, some within 10 yards, using every fold in the ground. Private Charles Owen later recalls hearing the .50's rhythm slow. The belt feeds thin. Some Germans sense the change and surge forward. Murphy shifts. He grabs his carbine and begins dropping individual attackers who close too near. At approximately 15:10 hours, with ammunition nearly exhausted and enemy soldiers closing, Murphy makes his most extreme decision of the day. He orders artillery to fire directly on his own position. The forward observer, Lieutenant Walter Wende Fanning, initially refuses. The request means certain danger for Murphy. Murphy insists, "I am giving you a direct order. Fire on my position now." The first 105mm shells land within 50 yards of the burning M10. Explosions hurl frozen earth and shrapnel in all directions. German infantry caught in the open disintegrates under the blasts. Murphy, still exposed on the vehicle, stands inside the lethal radius. Shrapnel tears into his leg. Blood runs down his trousers. He keeps firing the last rounds he can feed into the .50 and his carbine. The effect on the German attack is decisive. The infantry, already mauled, breaks. Survivors begin to fall back toward Holtzwihr. Perhaps 100 men remain from the original 250. The tanks, now without infantry support and under increasingly accurate artillery fire, reverse and withdraw. The attack that should have crushed Company B dissolves into retreat around 15-20 hours after roughly 1 hour of continuous combat. Murphy finally climbs down from the burning M10. His uniform is scorched, his leg bleeds freely. Behind him, the tank destroyer continues to burn. 10 minutes later, it explodes, sending a column of flame and debris into the winter sky. The field before him lies littered with German dead and wounded. Military historians estimate around 50 killed by his actions, with many more injured. The survivors move away, their officers unable to rally them for another attempt. Murphy walks back into the woods. Private Abramsky later remembers his expression, calm, almost unnervingly so. Murphy checks for casualties from the artillery he called in. He confirms his men's status. Then he sits and lights a cigarette. His hands remain steady. Behind the American lines, officers and enlisted men struggle to process what they have just witnessed. Across the field, among the German units, a different kind of silence settles. In the years that follow, historians search German archives for first-hand accounts of that attack. They find almost nothing. No detailed diaries, no personal testimonies. The war diary of the 2nd Mountain Division notes only that an attack on American positions near Holtzwihr is repulsed with heavy casualties, and that enemy resistance is heavier than expected. The gap speaks loudly. The units involved include the 2nd Mountain Division, elements of the 708th Volksgrenadier Division, and the 285th Assault Gun Battalion Audie. These are not inexperienced troops. Many have fought in Norway, Finland, and on the Eastern Front, yet their records reduce the day to a brief, almost clinical entry. Post-war German analysis revisits the engagement in a 1965 study on defense against superior forces. The conclusions list overconfidence, tactical inflexibility, and failed coordination between tanks and infantry. The study does not dwell on the psychological shock of meeting a defender who refuses every normal limit. The Germans never attack Company B's position again. That night, under cover of darkness, they withdraw from the sector. Elite mountain troops, brought from Norway for this offensive, pull back without orders from Corps Command. For soldiers who have not retreated in 4 years of war, the decision marks a profound break. Murphy's stand at Holtzwihr ripples far beyond that single field. By holding the edge of the Bois de Riedwehr, the 3rd Infantry Division maintains control of ground that dominates the approaches to Holtzwihr. The German failure to break through seals the fate of the Colmar pocket. Holtzwihr falls to the 30th Infantry Regiment on January 27, 1945. Within weeks, the entire German bridgehead west of the Rhine collapses. Around 50,000 German troops are removed from the fight. French commanders recognized the significance. General Jean de Lattre de Tassigny later states that the defense of the Holtzwihr approaches, particularly Murphy's action, breaks the back of German resistance in Alsace. The tactical lessons also spread. Murphy's integration of automatic fire and artillery in defense becomes a case study. American doctrine absorbs the demonstration that a well-positioned defender, using supporting fires aggressively, can shatter numerically superior forces. Years later, a memorial rises on the field. The 3rd Infantry Division receives the right to wear the French fourragère, honoring its role in the liberation of France. The site outside Holtzwihr becomes a place where French citizens and veterans gather to remember a day when a single American officer held the line. On June 2, 1945, near Salzburg, Austria, Lieutenant General Alexander Patch presents Audie Murphy with the Medal of Honor. The official citation describes him as alone and exposed to fire from 3 sides, killing dozens of Germans and causing their attack to waver. It notes that for 1 hour, the Germans try every available weapon to eliminate him, and that he continues to hold his position. Brigadier General Ralph B. Lovett and Lieutenant Colonel Harold D. Hansen, who recommend him for the medal, emphasize that his actions save Company B from destruction and allow the division to hold critical terrain. Murphy himself resists the language of heroism. When asked later why he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, he answers simply, they were killing his friends. He explains that he believes if one man can do the job, there is no reason to risk others. The war ends. Another battle begins. Murphy returns home carrying wounds that do not show on his uniform. Night after night, sleep shatters under the weight of recurring nightmares. He wakes sweating, heart racing, reliving firefights and artillery barrages. He begins sleeping with a loaded pistol under his pillow. Later, he moves to the garage, leaving the lights on because darkness feels too much like night patrols. He describes his memories as a nightmare that never fully releases him. A demon seemed to have entered my body, he writes of his combat experiences. His first marriage, to Wanda Hendricks, lasts only 16 months. She later recalls that he seems like 2 different people. During the day, he can be charming, funny, generous. At night, he patrols the house with a loaded gun, trapped in a world only he can see. Murphy does not hide these struggles. In 1966, he writes in the Saturday Evening Post that he cannot remember a time without nightmares. They become part of his life, like breathing. He acknowledges that he can afford doctors, medication, and therapy. Then he points toward veterans who cannot. He warns of thousands returning from Vietnam with the same invisible wounds. His willingness to speak publicly helps shift a nation's understanding. What the Army once calls battle fatigue begins to be recognized as a serious, lasting psychological injury. His advocacy contributes to the creation of the Audie L.L. Murphy Memorial Vive, a hospital in San Antonio in 1973, 2 years after his death in a plane crash at age 45. Behind the legend of Holtzwihr lies the machinery that made his stand possible. The M2 Browning .50 caliber machine gun, designed by John Browning in 1918, stands as one of the most effective heavy machine guns of the war. Its .50 BMG cartridge can penetrate 1 inch of armor at 100 yards. Each round carries over 13,000 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. The M10 tank destroyer beneath Murphy's feet carries 51 rounds of 3-inch ammunition, around 1,000 rounds of .50 caliber, and roughly 300 gallons of gasoline. When the German 88mm shell strikes, it ignites fuel and ammunition. Temperatures inside the burning hull exceed 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. For over an hour, the vehicle burns without a catastrophic explosion. Murphy stands on what is essentially a bomb with a burning fuse. The artillery he directs adds another layer of lethality. The 105mm howitzers supporting him fire 33-pound high-explosive shells out to more than 11,000 meters. Each detonation creates a blast radius of around 50 meters, with lethal fragments reaching 200 meters. Murphy adjusts this fire to within 50 yards of his own position, a distance any artilleryman considers danger close. Operating the M2 under those conditions demands more than courage. The weapon weighs 84 pounds and delivers heavy recoil. Murphy must maintain balance on a burning, shifting platform while absorbing that recoil and tracking targets. Smoke stings his eyes and lungs. Heat scorches his boots and uniform. Yet his fire remains controlled and accurate. Psychologists and historians study his case for decades. Dr. Dave Grossman, a leading expert on combat psychology, describes Murphy as a convergence of factors: technical skill from hunting, motivation born of poverty, emotional detachment shaped by early trauma. Above all, a protective instinct toward his men that overrides his own survival instinct. Murphy's own words support that view. When he explains his decision at Holtzwihr, he always returns to the same point. They were killing his men. The statement reveals a focus not on abstract strategy, but on the immediate lives behind him in the woods. In a 1968 interview, 3 years before his death, he reflects on that day. He acknowledges that people call it heroic. Then he describes feeling something inhuman take over. He becomes, in his own words, a killing machine. No fear, no anger. Only a cold determination to destroy. His military record remains unmatched by any American soldier. 33 decorations, including the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, the Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and 3 Purple Hearts, along with 5 foreign awards from France and Belgium. Yet his deepest legacy lies not in medals, but in what follows. The Audie Murphy Memorial V, a hospital specializes in treating PTSD and other combat-related psychological injuries. His autobiography, To Hell and Back, gives voice to experiences many veterans recognize but rarely articulate. The United States Army Infantry School uses his stand at Holtzwihr as a case study in defensive operations, leadership under fire, and the integration of supporting arms. The Audie Murphy Club, an honor society for non-commissioned officers, takes his name as a standard. Its members strive to embody his commitment to his soldiers. Master Sergeant Ronald Johnson, president of the Fort Hood chapter, explains that Murphy shows new generations that a warrior does not need imposing size or a military pedigree. What matters is the willingness to place comrades' lives above his own. Modern warfare evolves. Satellites, drones, and precision munitions reshape battlefields. Some argue that individual heroics like Murphy's belong to another era. Yet recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan produce their own echoes. Staff Sergeant David Balavia's actions in Fallujah, Sergeant First Class Paul Smith's stand in Baghdad. Each instance shows a single soldier holding a line under impossible pressure. General Stanley McChrystal, reflecting on such events, notes that technology changes war's character, but not its nature. At its core, war remains a contest of human wills. Murphy's stand at Holtzwihr becomes a pure expression of that reality. At the United States Army's Maneuver Center of Excellence, instructors highlight several lessons from his action: the power of terrain, the decisive effect of integrated fires, the psychological dimension of combat. Murphy understands that killing enemy soldiers is not enough. He must break their will to advance. His relentless, accurate fire convinces the German attackers that forward movement equals certain death. Away from classrooms and memorials, the human cost continues. Murphy's widow, Pamela, who marries him in 1951 and remains with him until 1971, describes a man who never fully leaves the war behind. She recalls him waking up screaming, reliving battles from decades earlier. Yet she also remembers his constant efforts to help other veterans seek treatment and recognition. His advocacy helps transform trauma into change. By speaking openly about his own nightmares and hypervigilance, he challenges the stigma surrounding psychological injuries. His voice helps thousands of veterans understand that their struggles reflect wounds, not weakness. On January 26th, each year, the field outside Holtzwihr stands quiet. The shell craters have long since filled. Crops grow where bodies once fell. A memorial stone marks the place where a burning M10 once burned beneath a lone defender. French citizens gather. American veterans stand beside them. Occasionally, elderly Germans attend, drawn by memory and history. They observe a moment of silence for all who fought and fell on that frozen ground. The boy who once hunted rabbits so his family could eat stands in their thoughts as the man who stopped an army to save his friends. His stand at Holtzwihr shows that, under certain conditions, one determined individual can alter the course of a battle, a campaign, even a war. It demonstrates that doctrine and numbers, while powerful, do not fully contain the reality of combat. Human will, sharpened by hardship and bound to the lives of others, can reach beyond expected limits. In that hour, on a burning tank destroyer, Audie Murphy becomes the embodiment of that truth. A 110-pound Texan, shaped by poverty and responsibility, holds back 250 German soldiers and 6 armored vehicles. The German records fall silent. The American records struggle to capture the scale of what he does. The field returns to peace. The war ends. The nightmares continue. Yet from that convergence of courage and cost emerges a legacy that still shapes how a nation trains its soldiers, honors its heroes, and cares for its wounded. The transformation from hungry farm boy to the man who stands alone against an army remains one of the most striking stories in military history. It endures not only because of what happens on January 26, 1945, but because of what follows when the guns fall silent and the hardest battles move inside battles. The mind of the man who survived.